Chapter 23. The World at War against Excalibur and the Knights Templar. How can we even make sense of this? It's madness.
When something big shows up on someone's path, it's essentially a compliment from the universe. Yes, it may appear as terror, but it's a vote of divine confidence, as if to say, you're enough of a badass to get through it. Trust this. Summon your strength and courage, and no matter how unconquerable a situation may appear to be, such darkness only arises because our spiritual light has grown so great, and that's why these forces of evil come to deter us. We will find a way through. Even if we don't win, we will never lose. We'll learn a lesson either way. We fight for that truth, and the truth will never end up confused,
said Teresa of Avila. Should we stay and fight?
Haven't you heard it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war? You don't even have a horse, a shield, armor, or a sword,
said Teresa of Avila. Not yet.
Oh, stop it,
she said. But I know of a mage, and I've got 2 wishes left I can ask for. She stopped in her tracks.
If you're lying, then your humor is perilous. This isn't the time to play around. Now tell me the truth about these so-called wishes. Are you serious?
Said Teresa of Avila. I removed the flint from my pocket. This is Merlinite. It's Merlin's wishing stones.
Merlin?
She asked. I didn't need to say anything else the way she examined the stones and gazed back.
How do you know Merlin?
She asked. I met him.
No, you haven't. He's been dead for many years. How else do you think this kingdom could have fallen into such despair?
Said Teresa of Avila. And what do you know about Merlin?
People think Merlin was a magician, and maybe so, but truly he was a supreme gardener of the soul, and he taught all beings how the soul is to grow. By doing this, he gained empathy, compassion, and sensitivity. These are qualities that contribute to a more elevated state of mind, and so he was entrusted with the divine mysteries only known to God, some called privity. The literal meaning of this is yoga, or union, or connecting. And one way of describing this is a soul union of 2 halves that are interconnected. Merlin found that a part of us exists within everything else. He found that no one is separate of anything. We are all aspects of one higher self. Merlin's explorations can be linked to a story about King Arthur. As a young prince, Arthur thought that the most enjoyable part of becoming king would be to rule over the kingdom. The wizard Merlin decided that Arthur would benefit from a powerful lesson. He changed the young Arthur into different people, animals, and objects found within the kingdom, such as a peasant, a fish, a tree, the water, and a rock, so that the young Prince Arthur could understand what it was actually like to be those different things. Arthur's experience gave him the much-needed ability to put himself in other people's shoes. There he began to understand that the most important job of being a king is not to be a ruler, but to serve,
said Teresa of Avila. What happened to Merlin?
When he died, so did the Knights Templar. So how can I believe you when Merlin's been dead for at least 180 years?
Well, do you have a better plan? How else can the kingdom survive an attack from those wicked racketeers?
What do you know about these stones? What powers do they hold?
She said. I was given 3 wishes, and I've already used 1.
And with your first wish, what did you summon?
Asked Teresa of Avila. For the first wish, I dashed the flint together, and so I said, Merlin the mage, bring forth the golden maiden's unicorn. For out of all royal rulers, great warriors, and skillful magicians, bring forth her truest lover. Reveal him in plain sight, otherwise I have reason to fear that the golden maiden may kill herself.
Who told you that she would kill herself?
Asked Teresa of Avila. In the hours before dawn, I am able to hear when she prays. The Golden Maiden speaks in poetry, and believe it or not, I'm able to tune into what her intuition has to say.
And when you said that wish, then what happened?
She asked. I looked up to the kingdom where the Golden Maiden called out. Then moments later, she requested my presence as we crossed paths. This all just happened right before I met you.
This way,
said Teresa of Avila. We ran away from the battle, away from the kingdom's castle, into the forest and through the darkness. Where are you leading me?
Quinta de Regulara,
said Teresa of Avila. There we stood atop a perfect mix of Gothic, Egyptian, Moorish, and Renaissance architecture. Now what lied beneath this ancient palace's garden is what truly set the design apart. A pair of wells, called the Initiation Wells, which was a spiral staircase deep within the earth, like towers inverted.
The wells may have collected water, but really, they were part of a mysterious initiation ritual within the Knights of the Templar tradition,
said Teresa of Avila. It's empty.
And if you're really the unicorn, let's see your horns,
said Teresa of Avila. Pardon me?
Do your magic, make it quick,
she said. And so what would you do if you barely had a clue? In the spirit of selfless service, we needed help against such a vicious and barbaric enemy coup. I settled my breath. Then I let my gaze lower. I dashed the flint together, and then I spoke before her. Merlin the mage, the great and wise sage, I dash your flint together, so please listen carefully, so that you may hear what this second wish has come to say. Bring forth resources and protection, for the 28th kingdom is being seized. I confide my trust in your magic, that you will deliver whatever our world needs. For a moment there was silence, then the rain began to pour.
Is that it?
Said Teresa of Avila. Well, it worked before. Then lightning and thunder roared. Out of the sky flew a giant dagger, and it was ignited on fire like a divine ambassador. It darted past us and flew to the very bottom of the well when we looked down.
Excalibur,
said Teresa of Avila. We ran down the spiral staircase, and there before us was a flaming sword, pinned within the earth.
Praise be to God, Merlin's magic has worked,
said Teresa of Avila. She reached for it, but it nearly burnt her hand. Is it not intended for man? I asked.
Not quite, but rather it is intended for what the legend sings. It can only be held by one man. It can only be held by the true king,
said Teresa of Avila. I looked in her eyes, but her eyes were not interested in my sight. Rather, she stared at the red turban, which was soaked by water and illuminated by the fire's light. My hands reached to the fabric, but it was too late. The horns had protruded through the wet turban, and I could no longer hide the horns of such predominant shape.
Pan,
she asked. I am just a simple man. All that has happened to me was barely up to me. I came in search of the Golden Maiden in hopes to set our souls free. My life was infected by the poison of Lilith and her snake, and so my fate was sealed. So for the sake of my own life, this snake's poison will drive me mad if I do not heal. I reached for the flaming blade, but this was not any man's reward, and so I felt the poison boil in my veins when I took hold of the grip and pulled at the sword. Since the poison could not be overcome, it seemed to spread only in my hand. For now I realized that the only way this poison could survive is for the poison to live in the host of a living man. My hand turned black against the fire. Now I squeezed Excalibur's handle. I lifted the sword from the stone, and now the flaming weapon was ready for battle. We ran to the top of the well, but before we could even move back towards the kingdom, there appeared to be a new force wearing all white, emerging through the dark woods. Who are you, and where do you hail from? I yelled to the knights approaching through the forest.
Temple Mount of Jerusalem. We are the Knights Templar, the protectors of the earthland and God's pilgrims,
said one of the knights. There was more men than I could count, and with them they brought forth 2 horses and helmets, and so I climbed aboard one, while the other carried Saint Teresa of Avila.
For you, my lord,
said the knight. A white horse for a dark night. And as war and terror rained down upon the 28th kingdom and the king's men, his troops were nearly defeated outright. But there emerged a force from within the wilderness, and so we came forth in white as divine legionnaires. And within only 28 minutes, the opposing enemy was slaughtered by the Knights Templar.